Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the MTG Arena Run Top 10, and these are top 10 characters who change color identity, and you can kind of guess who inspired this, which character inspired this one, but we'll set a few ground rules first as we go along. So first up, we're gonna be pretty much focusing on the story behind the changes. It's not just, oh, mechanically this card gained a color, this card lost a color. So as such, we're gonna be going over these stories in these characters in orders of relevance, or how relevant the character's transformation was to their mechanical transformation as a card. That said, I'm not exactly a big fan of what if alternate universes and time travels. So any color identity changes because of planar chaos and or Khans/Dragons of Tarkir will not be considered here. That said, we're gonna get this guy out of the way. Number 10, Omnath, Locus of Mana, Locus of Rage, Locus of the Royal, Locus of Creation. You can see the transformation as it goes around. You're probably fed up by the last one here at this point. Why is he number 10? Am I pandering to you guys because you're all sick and tired of Omnath? Actually, well, a little bit, but more importantly, this one is the biggest mechanical change. Every time Omnath gets printed, we get Omnath getting a new color. It's kind of inevitable that if we see Omnath one more time, it'll be 5 color by then. The thing is, Omnath was only relevant in the first part of the story. So basically, so we see Omnath Locus of Mana. It's a world wake card. Originally, Omnath was an entity that's basically imprisoned. And when the Eldrazi rose up, come Rise of the Eldrazi, Omnath was released because, think of it as a sentient god waiting for his usual offerings via ritual. But when that ritual failed, he got out of his prison and he started wreaking havoc over and over and over again. And it looks like no one remembered to put him back in prison because he's now wreaking havoc in Standard. That said, he never became relevant in the story, not in Battle for Zendikar, and so far we haven't seen any stories about him in Zendikar Rising. So we're not really sure how relevant Omnath will be. Probably not. That said, that's why he's down at number 10. Pretty much a curiosity, but that's about it. It's a mechanical curiosity. I guess I could rank higher if I was putting more emphasis on the mechanical aspect, but anyone can add another color. Number 9. This one's gonna be our first Planeswalker on the list. It's Nissa Ravine. Funny enough, Nissa's color identity right now in Nissa of Shadowed Bows, black and green. This was her original color identity. You remember this game called Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers? Nissa Ravine was a character created for that. Nissa was was created as a black-green character to for you to duel against. She was elf-centric, and somehow her story got retconned pretty much. One, because her original story was very not politically correct. It made for a great villain, someone who believed in the superiority of their own race at the cost of everything else. There was a nod to the change in her story when we went over her new origins. She did end up visiting Lorwyn. She ended up meeting definitely some supremacist elves in Lorwyn, and this was before it transformed into Shadowmoor. That said, the case of Nissa's character is that her color identity is definitely green. Nissa Steward of Elements in Amonkhet, that was a one-off. It was weird. We never got to see her in green-blue again. Nissa the Shadowed Bows, we don't know exactly what direction she's going in the story. We don't know if she is the villain or if Nahiri is the villain, or heck, everyone's just misunderstood. It's It's one big allegory of some sorts, but right until we get more details about the story moving forward, it's very hard to say how relevant the color identity changes towards each of these characters, versions of Nissa rather. So that's why she's down at number 9. So there you go. I guess some Omnath might be more relevant, but let's be honest, Nissa is more relevant. We kind of remember how relevant she was back in the before she rotated in standard. Yeah, that relevant. Number 8. Since we were talking about Lorwyn, we're going with this one. It's Aisling, either the Pilgrim or the Extinguisher, based on what timeline in the story she is in right now, right then and there. Aisling is a bit of a interesting character. She her original form, before she became the Extinguisher, the Destroyer, she was actually you could say that the original Lorwyn storyline was pretty much that of a group of ragtag people making their journey to Kolfinor. It actually feels like a Fellowship of the Ring of sorts. However, Aisling's character changes with the encounter, and she ends up becoming, well, here it's called the Extinguisher, but in the story she's really more of the Destroyer, and this was amplified even more when Lorwyn changed into Shadowmoor. However, her former allies were able to defeat her and bring her back into her Aisling form, and together with the power of flowers and friendship, they were able to thwart Kolfinor's ultimate plan. Okay, that sounded awfully cheesy, but that's pretty much the gist of the story. It's actually quite relevant, and also among all the Lorwyn characters that survived, albeit transformed, Aisling's the only one who had a complete color identity transformation from pure red to pure black. There's Reese who was there's Reese the elf who was green black at first, then became green white. There's Sig River Guide who became Sig River Cutthroat, so white blue to blue black. Then there is Wart, either the Bogart Auntie, which is black red, or the Raid Mother, which is red green. So pretty much Aisling was the only one with a really big transformation in terms of character. So this is why I chose her to represent Lorwyn and put her at number 8. Number 7, when people think of characters transforming, this is pretty much one of the first. It's Kamal, Pit Fighter, and Kamal, Fist of Krosa. So Kamal's story is basically a combination of Odyssey block and Onslaught block. I almost said Torment, but that was the main. But that was the highlighted second set. So Kamal's story, basically, the two cards are two versions of him for both from two different blocks, basically, because Kamal's original story is centered around. Well, I'm not sure if the sphere is a representative of that. I think it's something else, but it is after another spheroid type object called the Mirari. So Kamal's quest was pretty much him as a pit fighter, chasing after this MacGuffin of an artifact called the Mirari. But the story goes, and anyone who comes into contact with it gets corrupted. Eventually, when Kamal acquires the Mirari, it starts corrupting him as well, to the point where he ends up killing Jeska, his sister. And from that tragedy, he snaps out of his stupor, and that was the end of the Odyssey block story. When we revisit him again in Onslaught block, he is trying to redeem himself. He revisits his old friend Set on the centaur in the forest, and this is the case where it's now Kamal trying to redeem his sister Jeska. Well, as for what happens on that part of the storyline, let's move on to number 6. So number 6, we have Jeska in her original iteration as a warrior. She actually survived the supposed to be fatal blow from her brother Kamal, and and that one is for one reason. She actually had the Planeswalker spark. And it's also because of this Planeswalker spark that when she was eventually kidnapped by the Cabal, and through the decisions of certain higher up, she gets transformed into Phage the Untouchable. So that's a big shift. But moving further along down the storyline, when Phage, Akroma battle it out in this one huge battle, and there's a third person that gets killed unwittingly as well, they transform into Corona, False God. And basically, we have a character with a huge identity crisis. It's basically Corona looking for the meaning of life, wandering around. It's kind of like the DC storyline of Amazo trying to find out what's its purpose and whatnot. Eventually, Corona gets the false god gets broken up into their requisite components, but albeit Akroma and the third person was came out deceased already. Jessica came back, and not as Phage anymore. We unfortunately won't see Jessica again as a card because in Time Spiral block, she is a Planeswalker. Eventually gives up her spark, and to save the multiverse. So, but otherwise, this was a very interesting transformation again across two entire blocks. So, I guess one can argue that Kamal and Jessica's transformation could be moved up higher. But these are our representatives for the Dominaria post-invasion storyline. Now let's move to number 5. Number 5, this one, I guess one can argue this is a little bit lower because the transformation seems to have been made just for one storyline. We know what it is, War of the Spark. Basically, Niv Mizzet figures out that Nicol Bolas is coming to Ravnica, and he's not going down without a fight. He figures out this plan, especially because Jace, the absentee guild pact, is off traversing the multiverse. He figures out the plan to become the ultimate Parun, get the power of all the ley lines, so it's no longer just 10. I put him at number 5, and I probably should put him a bit lower because there's this entire story of Niv Mizzet seemingly being assassinated, being revived again, when he is reborn as the ultimate embodiment of all the magical powers of Ravnica. Goes up against one of the God Eternals. That's it. The fight is a draw. Niv Mizzet is unable to continue after that one, albeit defeating, I don't even remember who the God Eternal was. I think it might have been Oketra, if I'm not mistaken. I'm probably mistaken. I did put them up higher up because it's a big shift from two color to 5 color, and the character of first being a very selfish is it Parun up to one that is even more selfish and now takes everything from all the guilds. Also, if you still play Brawl, you might we can actually breathe a sigh of relief. We're not going to be terrorized by Niv Mizzet anymore until we get to Historic Brawl again. That said, number 5, Niv Mizzet. Number 4, we're moving on to the world of Mirrodin before it became New Phyrexia. This is there are actually 2 characters that went significant transformation here. One, the other one is Azuri. He transforms from a renegade elf to being completed by Jin-Gitaxias and becomes the Claw of Progress. So his color identity changes from green to blue-green. Glissa, I'm choosing Glissa because her story is much more tragic. At the end of the Mirrodin storyline, she was one of the heroes. Saves Mirrodin, dismantles Memnarch, and even gives up some power. I'm trying to remember if it's her or if it's Slow Bad Goblin Tinker, but basically a planeswalker. There was a planeswalker spark that was passed around, and it was eventually consumed to revived everyone who fell in that storyline. However, when she got back, her home was overrun because of the sudden appearance of all these artifact creatures, and she was despised because of that. She became an outcast, and combination of bitterness, she eventually welcomes the embrace of New Phyrexia. Kind of, it's a really sad story if you think of it. We don't exactly know what is going to happen because we have not been. I would really love to see a New Phyrexia storyline again. I'm pretty sure Glissa and Azuri will still be around when we do get back. I wonder what will happen. But that said, this one's a bigger transformation story wise rather instead of just being a mechanical transformation. She doesn't get infect, so that's part of her that did not get changed. But she still embodies the first strike part. She still interacts with artifacts, so there's a little bit of there's still some mechanical synergy between them. And that's it. There you go. Number 4, Glissa Sunseeker, the traitor. Number 3, we're now moving to Innistrad, and this one is a doozy of a storyline. So at the end of Avacyn Restored, Avacyn is restored, freed from the Hell Vault. But over time, she starts. She does her duty as the Great Archangel, the protector of all humanity in Innistrad. She starts getting doubts. She starts questioning her existence. Like, why am I protecting these humans? These guys are horrible. It's kind of like the typical story where an AI is made for the betterment of humanity, but it then decides that the betterment of humanity is to destroy humanity. So that's eventually where she starts changing. One can say it's the part of the influence of an incoming Emrakul, but Emrakul doesn't show up in this side of the storyline. Avacyn eventually becomes the Purifier, the one who wrecks all humanity, and wrecks every creature with only 3 toughness, because they're gonna take a lot of damage from that. So much for being the protector. And as a big major regret, her creator Saurian was the one who dealt the finishing blow. So that's pretty much the end of Avacyn. It's actually a good way to cap Avacyn's story. Like there's this huge transformation, and the transformation is so dire that it's pretty much the end of her character. But it's not really the end of all the shenanigans in Innistrad, because that's number 3, Avacyn. Let's move to number 2. Number 2, we have two of the three angel sisters, Gisela and Bruna. Now, together with Avacyn, Gisela, Bruna, and one sister, Sigarda, they're like the major sisters. In fact, Gisela and Bruna and Sigarda are older than Avacyn. Avacyn is a later creation. However, there is a 4th unnamed angel, but she's not relevant to this part of the discussion. Actually, though we do find out parts of her story in another ebook I think it was an ebook that was distributed for free if you registered to get updates on another ebook. Anyway, so we have Gisela, Blade of Gold Light, and Bruna, Light of Alabaster from Avacyn Restored. But however, when Avacyn herself, this goes back to the Shadows over Innistrad storyline, when she starts getting these troubled thoughts about wrecking humanity, Gisela and Bruna side with her. Sigarda does not, because she's the only one who remains on the side of humanity. The two of them, well, it doesn't seem like much of a change. It seems like they just lose colors and... Wait a minute. This is a transform card. Actually, no, this is a melt card. I think they transform into something else. Hold on a second. Ah, there you go. When Avacyn was killed, that was pretty... It is the one thing that... It was kind of important because that was the only way to save humanity. However, it was also the last bastion that prevented Emrakul from showing up, and as a result of that and Emrakul's influence, Gisela and Bruna, they meld into Brisella. What a nightmare. However, we won't have to see this nightmare again because Talia and company, I believe with the help of Sigarda, were able to finish off Brisella, but at no small cost. But that said, it's a very interesting one. This is pretty much the only instance of characters losing colors as part of their color identity, to the point where their final color identity, okay, technically it's still white for purposes of commander, but eventually becomes colorless card. Man, a monster. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain-ness. Anyway, that's number 2. Gisela and Bruna. Finally, number 1, we go back to one of the OG Planeswalkers, so we go back to one interesting storyline. In fact, this pretty much encompassed... This is a very long storyline. So we have original Garruk Wildspeaker, pretty much the mono-green Planeswalker poster boy for big beasts. However, they did introduce a very interesting part of the story where actually it's during the events of Avacyn Restored. No, sorry. It's during the events of Innistrad, where Garruk has a run-in with Liliana, because Liliana was the source of corruption. So Garruk, being the protector of the wild and whatnot, goes after her. They come to blows, and at this point, Liliana still had the Chain Veil, so she had no choice. So she had to use the Chain Veil's power on him, effectively cursing him. And this is where we see Garruk as with a new identity of being green-black. In fact, there will be many versions of Garruk. Most of them will be mono-green, but all of them harken to him pre-transformation. We won't see Garruk again until we won't see Garruk again in terms of chronological order until Throne of Eldraine, where after being the hunter of Planeswalkers, he gets into this big run-in with Oko, and he eventually becomes a slave to Oko, like any other creature or Planeswalker or food token. If you run into Oko, you're probably gonna get turned. But somehow Garruk's story doesn't end there, because of Oko shenanigans. Another pair of characters, Will and Rowan Kenrit, are chasing after him, looking for their father. They eventually have the run-in with Garruk, and in one encounter, Will actually tries to save a Garruk that is being swept away. And it actually comes to the point where Garruk encounters the Cauldron of Eternity, and it is over there that the last vestiges of the curse was kind of failing at this point. And it kind of makes sense that the curse was failing, because this was after War of the Spark. By this time, the Chain Veil was still there, but the Great Holder, the Great Source of Power, Nicol Bolas, was not pretty much there anymore. So that power is starting to fade, and eventually the Cauldron of Eternity sees Garruk as actually a worthy character, and clears him of the curse. So this is pretty much the one instance where we see this transformation from mono green to green black, really part of the story, back to mono green again. Will we see Garruk again in story? I really hope so, because it'll be interesting to see what his character will be like. Will he be going back to making beasts and kind of clashing for space with Vivian because she also makes beasts, or will he find another niche place? That remains to be seen, but there seems to be high hopes for that. There you go. That's it for this top 10. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of characters I missed who've had color identity changes. Let me know which are the characters that you think I should have mentioned, whether it be for storyline or for mechanical reasons. What are the characters that you think should have been on this list, or what are the characters you think that are on this list that should not have been there? That said, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys again. Well, I do a lot of other content, but I'll see you again next month for another top 10. Until then, take care, God bless, stay safe wherever you are. Have a great day, everyone.